All-State Sugar Bowl number 1 Clemson 121 vs. number 4 Alabama 111 7:45 p.m. CST Monday. ESPN Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. 0 Alabama player who has as many rushing attempts as RB Damian Harris has a better yards per carry average. Harris has averaged gaining 7.0 yards on his 302 rushing attempts with the Crimson Tide. Harris needs 94 rushing yards to record Alabama's 21st 1,000-yard season and become the 6th Crimson Tide player to rush for 1,000 yards in 2 seasons. Harris ran for 1,037 yards in 2016. Alabama's other 1,000-yard rushers have been Johnny Musso in 1970 and 1971, Bobby Humphrey in 1986 and 1987, Saran Stacy in 1989, Sherman Williams in 1994, Dennis Riddle in 1996, Shaun Alexander in 1998 and 1999, Shard Williams in 2003, Kenneth Darby in 2004 and 2005, Glenn Coffey in 2008, Mark Ingram in 2009, Trent Richardson in 2011, Eddie Lacy in 2012, T.J. Yeldon in 2012 and 2013 and Derrick Henry in 2015. One team has made the CFP field in all 4 of the tournament's postseasons. Alabama. 9 schools have filled the 16 CFP slots in its 4 seasons, with Alabama earning 4 invitations, Clemson 3, Ohio State and Oklahoma 2 apiece, and Florida State, Georgia, Michigan State, Oregon and Washington 1 each. One player in Alabama history has produced more TDs for the Crimson Tide than QB Jalen Hurts has in his 27 games. A.J. McCarron holds the Alabama career record for TD responsibility with 80 in 53 games. Hurts has 59 on 38 TD passes and 21 TD runs. One coach has guided his team through 6 consecutive seasons in which it finished with the same or a better ranking in the final app poll than it had in the preseason poll. Clemson's Dabo Swinney. In 2011, Clemson was not ranked in the preseason poll and finished 22nd. In 2012, Clemson was 14th in the preseason poll and finished 11th. In 2013, Clemson was 8th in both the preseason and final polls. In 2014, Clemson was 16th in the preseason poll and 15th in the final rankings. In 2015, Clemson was 12th in the preseason poll and 2nd in the final one. In 2016, Clemson was 2nd in the preseason poll and 1st in the final rankings. The Tigers were number 5 in the 2017 preseason poll. One player in Monday's game is a 2017 consensus All-American Alabama's Minkah Fitzpatrick, who earned the honor for the 2nd straight season. Fitzpatrick also was a unanimous All-American, which means he received first-team recognition from the 5 organizations used by the NCAA to compile the consensus team. Clemson had 4 players who were first-team selections by at least one of the organizations but were not consensus All-Americans: Austin Bryant, Clelin Ferrell, O.T. Mitch Hyatt and E.T. Christian Wilkins. Alabama also had a player who earned first-team recognition without being a consensus selection: Rashaan Evans. 2 NCAA FBS programs have won 12 games in 4 consecutive seasons, a feat that Alabama would accomplish by beating Clemson. Boise State had at least 12 victories every season from 2008 through 2011, and Ohio State had at least 12 victories every season from 2012 through 2015. Alabama had 12 victories in 2014, 14 in 2015 and 14 in 2016. 3 teams have not allowed an opponent to score 30 points in a game this season, including Alabama. The other teams are Auburn and Wisconsin. 3 previous postseason games have been played against ACC opponents by Alabama. The Crimson Tide defeated North Carolina 2,410 in the Gator Bowl on December 31, 1993, and Clemson 4,540 in the CFP national title game on Jan. 11, 2016, and lost to Clemson 3,531 in the CFP national title game on Jan. 9, 2017. Alabama has a 244 record against ACC opponents. In addition to the defeat by Clemson last season, the Tide lost to Maryland in 1953, Georgia Tech in 1984 and Florida State in 2007. Clemson has a 57 bowl record and a 50,965 mark against SEC opponents, including victories over Auburn and South Carolina this season. 4 consecutive victories against the No. one team in the app poll have been posted by Alabama. Since losing to number 1 LSU 96 in overtime on November 5, 2011, the Crimson Tide has beaten LSU 210 on January 9, 2012, Notre Dame 4,214 on Jan. 7, 2013, Mississippi State 2,520 on November 15, 2014, and Clemson 4,540 on January 11, 2016, in games against the number 1 team. Alabama has an 84 record against the number 1 team. 4 TD passes have been caught by Clemson Wr. Hunter Renfrow in 2 games against Alabama. In the other 35 games of his college career, Renfrow has 10 TD receptions. Renfrow has scored 2 TDs in each of the past 2 CFP championship games against the Crimson Tide, the only TWO-TD games of his career, including the game-winning reception with 1 second left in last season's game. 5 punt return yards have been yielded by Alabama this season, the fewest in the nation. Opponents have returned 4 of the Crimson Tide's 42 punts for an average of 1.25 yards. Clemson has averaged 11.1 yards on 29 punt returns this season, with 1 going for a TD. 8 turnovers have been lost by Alabama this season, tied with LSU for the fewest in the nation entering New Year's Day. The Crimson Tide has thrown 2 interceptions, also the fewest in the nation. 9 sites for Alabama-Clemson games when the teams hit the field at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome on Monday night. New Orleans joins Birmingham, Montgomery and Tuscaloosa in Alabama, Clemson and Columbia in South Carolina, Atlanta, Glendale, Arizona, and Tampa, Florida, as places the Tide and Tigers have squared off. Alabama has a 134 lead in the series with Clemson. 10 consecutive games against teams ranked in the app poll have been won by Clemson, the longest streak in ACC history. The Tigers haven't lost to a ranked team since falling to Alabama 4,540 in the CFP championship game for the 2015 season. By beating Alabama 3,531 in last year's CFP championship game, Clemson ended the Crimson Tide's streak of 16 victories over ranked teams, tied for the longest in app poll history with Southern Cal's streak from 2002 into 2005. 11.5 points per game have been given up by Alabama in 2017, the lowest in the nation entering the bowl season. Clemson ranks second nationally, yielding an average of 12.8 points per game. 13 TDs have been scored by RB Travis Etienne in 2017, tied for the Clemson single-season freshman record set by Sammy Watkins in 2011. 13 fourth downs have been converted into first downs by Alabama this season. The Crimson Tide's success rate of 81.25%, 13 of 16 on fourth down, is the best in the nation entering the bowl season. Clemson was almost as good, converting 12 of 16 when going for it on fourth down. 16 appearances in the Sugar Bowl for Alabama when the Crimson Tide hits the field on Monday night. Alabama will have twice as many Sugar Bowl appearances as in any other bowl, having played in the Cotton and Orange 8 times apiece. Alabama has played in the Sugar Bowl more than any other team, with LSU in second with 13 appearances. The Tide has an 87 record in the Sugar Bowl, with losses in its past 3 appearances in the game. 16 TDs have been scored against Alabama this season, the fewest in the nation. The Crimson Tide has given up 7 passing TDs, the fewest in the nation. Clemson have given up 5 rushing TDs, tied with Wisconsin for the fewest in the nation. 17 victories, 14 losses and 1 tie for Alabama when playing on New Year's Day. Clemson has a 57 record on Jan. 1. 19 victories against teams ranked in the top 5 of the app poll for teams coached by Nick Saban, 1 ahead of former West Virginia-Florida State coach Bobby Bowden at the top of the all-time list. Clemson is ranked number 1 in the app poll. Saban has a 136 record against top 5 teams at Alabama. The victories came against number 3 Georgia in 2008, No. 1 Florida and No. 2 Texas in 2009, number 1 LSU in 2011, number 5 LSU, number 3 Georgia and number 1 Notre Dame in 2012, number 1 Mississippi State in 2014, No. 2 LSU, No. 3 Michigan State and number 1 Clemson in 2015, number 3 Washington in 2016 and number 3 Florida State in 2017. Overall, Saban has a 19-12 record against top 5 opponents. Bowden's record was 18,301. 22 victories and 19 losses for Clemson in bowls. The Tigers are making their second appearance in the Sugar Bowl. On Jan. 1, 1959, Clemson lost to LSU 70 in its only previous appearance in the game. 24 years since the previous time that two teams have squared off as top four opponents in the Associated Press poll for 3 consecutive seasons. Number 4 Alabama and number 1 Clemson will make it 3 in a row on Monday night when they meet in the Sugar Bowl. Florida State and Miami, Florida, accomplished the feat from 1991 through 1993, with the No. 2 Hurricanes beating the number 1 Seminoles 17-16 in 1991, number 2 Miami beating number 3 Florida State 19-16 in 1992, and the number 1 Seminoles beating the No. 3 Hurricanes 2,810 in 1993. Number 2 Alabama defeated number 1 Clemson 4,540 in the CFP national title game on January 11, 2016, and number 3 Clemson defeated No. 1 Alabama 3,531 in the CFP national title game on Jan. 9, 2017. 25 years since Clemson coach Dabo Swinney caught 4 passes as a wide receiver for Alabama's 1992 Consensus National Championship team. Swinney then spent the next 8 seasons on the Crimson Tide's coaching staff. With 101 victories, Swinney ranks second among Clemson's coaches. The coach ahead of him, Frank Howard, with 165 wins, and the coach behind him, Danny Ford, with 96, also were Alabama graduates. 42 consecutive games with a reception for Alabama. Wr. Calvin Ridley, the longest active streak in the SEC and the third longest in the nation. During his streak, Ridley has caught 216 passes. He's second on Alabama's career list behind the 228 receptions of Amari Cooper 201,214. 42 consecutive app polls have included Alabama and Clemson in the top 10. They're tied for the longest current top 10 streak. Wisconsin is next with 22 in a row. 44 sacks have been registered by Clemson this season, the most in the nation entering the bowl season. 46 yards were gained on the longest pass completed against Alabama in 2017. Alabama was one of 5 teams that hadn't given up a pass longer than 49 yards to an opponent entering the bowl season. Clemson has completed 6 passes that gained at least 50 yards this season. 47 consecutive Alabama games have featured a rushing TD by the Crimson Tide, the longest streak in the nation. Alabama was most recently kept out of the end zone on the ground during a 2013 overtime victory against LSU on November 8, 2014. Clemson has given up 5 rushing TDs this season. 50 games have been won by Clemson since the start of the 2014 season, an ACC record for the most victories in a 4-season span. Clemson has 6 scholarship seniors. 51 games have been won by Alabama since the start of the 2014 season, tying the NCAA FBS record for the most victories in a 4-season span. The record was set by Alabama from 2013 through 2016. Alabama had 12 victories in 2012 and 14 in 2013 and 2014. This year's Tide team has 11 victories, 51 victories, 97 losses and 5 ties for Clemson against SEC opponents. Under coach Dabo Swinney, Clemson is 138 against SEC foes. The 1989 season is the most recent in which Clemson did not play an SEC member, and the Tigers own a 146 victory over Auburn on Sept. 9 and a 3,410 victory over South Carolina on November 25 this season, 66 previous bowl appearances for Alabama. The Crimson Tide has a 38,253 on-the-field record in those games. Alabama is the all-time leader in bowl appearances and bowl victories. 67 previous Sugar Bowls have featured at least one SEC team. 2 games match SEC opponents. SEC members have a 3,332 record in the Sugar Bowl against teams from other conferences. 93 third downs have been converted into first downs by Clemson, the most in the nation entering the bowl season. 98 punts have been kicked by Clemson's opponents this season, the most in the nation entering the bowl season. 216 receptions have been made by Wr. Calvin Ridley during his Alabama career. Ridley ranks 5th on the SEC's all-time list. Vanderbilt's Jordan Matthews holds the conference record for career receptions with 262 from 2010 through 2013. The other players ahead of Ridley in SEC history are Vanderbilt's Earl Bennett 236 receptions from 2005 through 2007, Texas A&M's Christian Kirk 234, 201,517 and Alabama's Amari Cooper 228, 201,214. 225 consecutive games have been played without being shut out for Alabama, a school record. Alabama's most recent shutout loss came 92 Auburn on November 18, 2000. 361 penalty yards have been assessed against Alabama's opponents this season, the fewest in the nation. 3,093 yards have been given up by Alabama this season, the fewest in the nation. The Crimson Tide has yielded an average of 257.8 yards per game. Alabama has given up an average of 4.04 yards per play, the lowest in the nation. For more of Al.com's comprehensive coverage of the SEC, go to our SEC page. Mark Inabinet is a sports reporter for Alabama Media Group. Follow him on Twitter at imark1.